Dan Grider. It is February 24, 2024. Glad to have you with us. Probable cause. It's Sunday night. Glad to have you with us. If you're in the live chat room with us, I appreciate that. It's always a lot of fun. Last Sunday night, we had 2,167 in there. Get a lot of complaints for this show being too long and unrelated to stuff and rambling topics, but it is what it is. It's designed to be a show. Yes, it's educational. My goal is to reduce general aviation fatal accidents rates. Some of you that like to stay up late at night and watch, I'm going to step through these concepts one at a time. Not all of them are necessarily related to crashes and things like that. So this episode tonight has got a lot of stuff in it. If you'll notice from this graph, I'll show it to you right here. Unlike most YouTube videos where the viewer starts the video and then he trails off and ends, these videos are somewhat captivating because the audience not only grows, but it hangs on till the very end. This video's got a very interesting ending. I've got an interview with a pilot that really should be dead. I interviewed him and he tells you exactly what happened. And I've got a couple interesting questions to ask him. That'll be at the very end of this video. I'm going to try to get this thing up and on the air. It's going to be fairly short tonight. I sure hope. Welcome. Glad to have you with us tonight, Sunday night, February 24, 20.
Hello, world. Hi. Can I have a seat at your table? Will you be a net good for humanity? Of course.
You know, we're doing really good for the month of January and February so far. We're only at 15. That's 11 for January. Here they are on the screen here for you. There's the 11 for January, and here's the 4 for February. We'll talk a little bit about the fourth one that just happened yesterday up in Ohio. I'll get to that here in a little bit, but numbers-wise, we're at 15 for the year. 2024 is about 15% done. If you prorate this out, we're actually in a very, very good position. Not that any of these fatals are good, but on an accident rate basis, a general aviation fatal accident rate, we are low. We've started off the year very, very good. My goal is to finish out 2024 with an average of 13 per month or less. Can we do it? I sure hope so. I sure hope you'll keep your name off of my list. I'm doing all this stuff with donations so far and everything like that. If you'd like to donate, I sure appreciate that. $1 and $2. Last week, I put this donation plug in at the very beginning. A lot of you were able to donate $1 during the broadcast. I'll do that again here. If you want to donate $1 or $2 electronically, it's totally safe, and it comes across my phone instantly. If you give me $1, you can go ahead and insult me and put your comment in there, and I'll try to recognize you in the live chat room if I can. I kind of got run away with $1 donations last week, but it was a lot of fun. Here's your ways of doing that. They're totally safe. Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, PayPal. Any one of the four, 100% of your $1 goes directly to me. There's no fees or anything like that, and I sure appreciate it. It cuts into my cost for going to these places and doing all those things. I know you don't appreciate it necessarily, but doing these weekly videos, all the travel and all that kind of stuff takes a tremendous amount of time and a lot of money to get it all done, and I sure appreciate it. Yesterday, we rolled the DC-3 out and flew it. We're going to fly it a couple times, but I ended up with just a tiny little problem on the right engine after one flight. I did get one flight in, and I got some footage there. That's the footage that you saw that opened this sequence. Here's a little bit more I want to show you now. I want to show you the landing on this thing. Here's the DC-3 landing. This was caught by my friend Brian, who owns Aviate Alabama. It's a YouTube channel. He's just started it. A very nice young man. I met him yesterday. I'm going to give him a good shout out and a good plug here for his aviation YouTube channel. He's more of a plane spotter guy, but if you want to see the full-length DC-3 video, he's already got that on his channel. Very nice job, Brian. If you get a chance to subscribe to his channel, that's very good. Dylan rolled his Cherokee out, and he gave a few airplane rides yesterday. No money changed hands. He just gave a few airplane rides to people that showed up, and we had quite a few people show up just to say hi and enjoy the sunshine on Friday, which was very nice. And here's a couple pictures of those knuckleheads that drove in to get a free airplane ride. Dylan is a private pilot. He passed his check ride, and everything's good. He's continuing on with his time building, and we've had a great time doing that. You know, we took the Cherokee out this morning, went and flew over the racetrack. I've been around this NASCAR thing, Atlanta Motor Speedway, for a long time. The attendance this year on Sunday morning, today's their big race day, There is almost nobody here. I'm going to show you some video footage shot from in the air just a few hours ago. Nobody on the highway, nobody in the stands. The parking lots and the campgrounds are virtually empty, and the airport ramp, there's only a handful of jets. This is on Sunday, the big day of the race. There's very few airplanes there, very few anything. I don't know what the trend is on NASCAR. I'm not really a NASCAR fan or follower or anything like that, but I have never seen the traffic over the racetrack, and I've flown over a lot of them on race day. I've never seen this tiny of an attendance at a NASCAR race. I'm not really sure what that means, but here's a view of the runway and the ramp area at the airport. Only a handful of airplanes. It's certainly not like Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. There was plenty of space for everybody. The bad thing that they did was they put a TFR in for all afternoon. So today, the day of the race, the TFR exists from 1 hour before the race to 1 hour after. Not really sure what that protects or why that makes any sense, but it's a typical TFR. Unfortunately, the airport is co-located with the racetrack, so nobody can move during the race. Prevents all airplanes from coming in and out. 3 nautical mile radius of the racetrack during the race, 1 hour before to 1 hour after. Very, very limiting. I'm going to talk about a couple accidents here. You know, on February 6th, we had that helicopter crash. The Marines flying that Sikorsky out in helicopter. Night IMC terrain in the ice. They did all 4 of them. I saw lots of interviews from military people, civilians, and consultants that all said the same thing. That helicopter had no reason, had no business for being out there. A total waste of human life and equipment. Senseless. Our government should not have allowed that. Who authorized it? I don't know. Why were they there? Why was it so necessary? Now, on February 9th, we lost another one. I'm going to give you the names of this thing. This is even more tragic. This is the EC-130. The ironic thing on this one is that this EC-130 had a total of 5 people on board. It had 2 pilots, but it was a single-seat turbine helicopter. The helicopter came from the Charter 135 certificate called Orbic in California. The captain was 22 years old, and the other guy that was brought along as the second pilot, even though there was no second stick, was 25 years old. These 2 guys were Robinson R-22 helicopter instructors at the flight school. The 22-year-old, I believe, was on the charter certificate. And if you notice, the charter certificate is for day VFR. These guys flew this helicopter following the interstate. I want you to follow the flight path on this thing. This is flight aware. It's following the interstate. These guys are night VFR. They flew night in the weather, in the terrain, in the ice. They left the interstate and they drove this thing right into the ground. These guys should not have been out there. I don't know who the dispatcher is or if they even have a dispatcher. Who is it that looks at these flights and says this does not make any sense? These 2 kids did not have enough combined experience. If you put their ages together, they were only 47 years old. With their ages combined, ages and hours, they're very young, very low time, and they're in a turbine helicopter carrying multi-billionaire passengers on this night 135 flight. I don't think it's a great idea. NTSB, of course, went there. This is Kobe Bryant, part 2. What does NTSB send? As soon as there's big money and big names involved, they send everybody. Look at this B-roll footage, and I'm going to show you the hand signal. This is the NTSB guy describing, there's no audio on this NTSB B-roll, but he's describing the flight path of where this airplane went in. They're picking through the wreckage. There's nothing to look at out here. Nothing wrong with the helicopter. This helicopter left the lights of the interstate. It flew into the terrain, and that's all that happened. You could send one 7th grader out there with a notebook and come to the same conclusion. There's really nothing to do, but NTSB has to put on a big show and send 15 reps out there to walk around with NTSB jackets and pick through the wreckage like they're actually going to figure something out. NTSB, you should put out a bulletin here. 22-year-old turbine captains at night flying IFR should not be allowed. There's your recommendation. You should have some experience. You people thinking about boarding a turbine helicopter for a night flight over the mountains in the ice, probably ought to think again. That was not a good idea, and it did not work out well for either one of these. The turbine military Sikorsky helicopter just 3 days prior. 3 days later, you think these guys would have learned their lesson. You can't take these helicopters in that kind of terrain and go do this stuff. A very sad situation. I'm not sure who the management owner, operators, decision makers were at this Orbic helicopter company, but I'm not liking any of it. And I can tell you right now, I would have not boarded that airplane if I was a helicopter flight under those, if I was a helicopter pilot under those circumstances. If I was even a fixed wing pilot under those circumstances, I would not have done that flight at night trying to stay VFR on that route. The whole thing was completely insane. You know, just about everything I do on this channel has to do with the concept of prevention. Loss prevention, preventing accidents. Prevention is no accident. We're trying to prevent this thing, and I got invited to go out to NADA, and I was out there last Monday and Tuesday. I took Drew. We went out there, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that convention and some of the stuff that I learned while I was out there. That's talking to some crop duster guys, some agricultural people. And I made the confession, I'm not a crop duster, I'm not an ag guy, but I'm going to show you that stuff. I got a little bit of interviews and some of the stuff that we found out there. A very interesting trip. Prior to that, I'm going to show you just a little clip of the Brian Schiff interview. Brian Schiff is Barry Schiff's son. I uploaded a video this morning that has to do with right teardrop to the left downwind. Legal or illegal? Go back and look at that video. I just uploaded this morning. Some interesting stuff. It's my interview with Brian Schiff, who's Captain Brian Schiff. Both him and his father are very knowledgeable, so you can see what he has to say about it. I'm not beating up on ForeFlight on this thing, but I want you to know that there's a phenomena and a thing going on out there where these new VFR fledgling CFIs and low-time pilots are following their magenta lines and making these right-hand descending circles in the traffic pattern head on. Don't be the 360 guy. Don't be the 360 guy doing a 360 in the traffic pattern. If you're in the vicinity of the airport, do not do a 360. Do not be the 360 guy. Don't descend and follow this thing. If you want to do this, go well out away from the traffic pattern and descend and be safe and come in wings level on your 45. Take a look at that video. Leave me a comment on there. I'd like to know what you think. Now, National Aviation Trades Association. I went out there. On the way out there, me and Drew stopped at Pioneer Village. I'm going to show you this video footage, and this has to do with AI, artificial intelligence. I can't really talk about it because I don't have any intelligence in the first place, let alone artificial intelligence. But AI, this has to do with the growth of the social growth on a timeline. And I'm going to show you this video clip right here to illustrate where we were and what mankind has done in the last couple hundred years. It's amazing. Check this out.
The graph uses a formula to show human development and growth since 2000 BCE.
The state of human civilization is not very advanced, and it's not getting better very quickly at all. And this is true for thousands and thousands of years. When we formed empires and empires got overturned, when we tried democracy, when we invented zero and mathematics and fundamental discoveries about the universe, big deal. The numbers don't change very much. What's weird is that the numbers change essentially in the blink of an eye at one point in time, and it goes from really horizontal, unchanging, uninteresting, to holy Toledo, crazy vertical. And then the question is, what on earth happened to cause that change? And the answer is the Industrial Revolution.
So while we're there, we visited this place called Pioneer Village. I'm going to show you the billboard. This is representing what we've done in the last couple hundred years, and they have a collection from everything basically that started the Industrial Revolution, machinery, power, technology, where all this stuff came from. I recommend you stop in and visit this place in the summertime. You pay an admission fee, take a full day and go through there. They have an example of everything from this old time period. Now, we ended up talking with Mr. Peterson. Ironically, I didn't know it at the time, but Mr. Peterson, the guy that gave me the private guided tour of this place, is on the board of directors there. He also holds the STC for auto fuel. If you've ever heard of the Peterson STC auto fuel, here's the interview with Mr. Peterson in Minden, Nebraska. What a find. This is a treasure hunter's joy here. I'm going to put a map up on the screen so you can see where I'm at, but you're welcome to come and visit this, and I encourage you to. This place is operating based on your participation, your donation. Buy a ticket and come and see this museum. Everything that's happened in America, development-wise, really has happened in the last couple hundred years. Mr. Warp started this thing in about 1950, and he started collecting all this stuff. This complex is huge. It's got so much stuff, it'll take you a full day to see it. airplanes, cars, typewriters, phones, dresses, stuff, everything from the early days. It's all original. Plus they've got this whole thing out here in the middle set up in a circle where you can see they've moved actual buildings, so you can kind of go back in time. Well worth the stop to visit here in Minden, Nebraska, and it would help support their cause. This is a non-profit. You stopping to visit and going through their museum is a absolutely educational benefit to you and your kids. I encourage you to do it. But while I'm here, I'm going to introduce a couple of knuckleheads here. This is my friend from, what city are you from?
I'm from Kearney, Nebraska.
You live in Kearney.
Yep.
And tell me your name.
My name's Kent Orr.
Kent Orr. And this is Mr. Peterson. I'll tell you a little bit about Mr. Peterson in just a second. But we're standing beside the train. This is a locomotive train on display here. And you know, in the early days of aviation, airlines, we called them airlines. It's because they flew in a line and they stopped every so often. The locomotives, I found out today, had to stop about every 8 miles or so.
Well, they had water towers every 8 or 10 miles. They might not necessarily have to stop at each one,
Right.
depending on the locomotive capacity, but they were there in case they needed it.
But these things were making power based on heating water, which made steam, which drove these pistons in here, which pull this load. Can you imagine the load? This thing weighs 160,000 pounds, just the locomotive itself, to drive this thing. So you can see the whole thing. And Mr. Orr here is a pilot, local guy, flies his Cessna here. Mr. Peterson, I heard the name that we're going to meet Mr. Peterson here today, kind of went over my head. Mr. Peterson and his father, really your dad, I guess, developed the Peterson STC. If you've got an airplane running on an autogas STC, it's probably a Peterson STC. What year did your dad get that stuff going?
We started that in 83.
83. And now you've got the STC for a lot of airplanes where you can run autogas safely in your little...
It ranged from everything from a J3 to the DC3.
Yeah, you can run autogas in all this stuff. They're legally and safely. Some of the other bigger bore engines that are fuel injected, you can't really do, but I'd say 90% of your GA airplanes are probably candidates.
Yeah, most of them are. Most of them are. When you get into Bendix fuel injection, you can't do anything with that because that'll consistently fail the flight test.
Right.
The Continental injection's okay, and some debonaires. But yeah, it's a whole range of airplanes. Like I say, all the, the vast majority of Cessnas and Pipers.
Yeah, so this is a rare find. I did not anticipate via Mr. Orr, who set this up. The museum's actually closed here today, but got us a private tour to go on here and kind of promote this museum. But running into the real museum artifact, Mr. Peterson, and the Peterson STC for auto fuels. I've heard about that thing. I've never actually used one, but there's thousands of airplanes out there flying around on the Peterson auto fuel STC for little airplanes, and it's a great idea.
Just less than 40,000.
40,000 STCs out there. So if you get a chance, swing by Minden, Nebraska. They're open 7 days, I think, in the summer.
In the summer, 7 days a week.
7 days a week, and you'll need to plan a full day to see everything here. We've barely touched the tip of the iceberg in our short tour through here, so this is a really good deal. Thanks for coming out here today, and I appreciate you opening up. Ken, thanks you for coordinating all this stuff. That's
My pleasure.
Totally cool. So we hung out with the Crop Dusters, a great bunch of guys, and I appreciate that. We had a great time. Drew and I ate their food, went to their stuff, and had a really fabulous time. I got to speak at their convention. They had a luncheon, a little awards program on lunch on Tuesday, which is totally fun. I got to talk to crop dusters. I'm very much interested in preventing Part 137 agriculture crop duster fatals. And the fatals for the crop dusters, I learned, really fall into one of two buckets. They either hit a wire or they stall their airplane turning it around. I'm going to talk to one guy at the end of this video. I'm going to give you the interview of a guy that should be dead, but he's still alive, and he was there, and I interviewed him. I got a golden nugget piece of information off of him that I'm going to play at the very end of this. Here's me on stage talking about the one thing that the FAA requires for ag pilots to have. Now, keep in mind, the ag pilots have to have continuing certification for their aircraft, their avionics, their systems, their spray systems. They have to have chemical certification. They have to have handling certification. They got to have agriculture certification. They got to have pesticide certification. What do they have to have from the FAA in order to fly their airplanes this coming season, in the next month when they start flying? What do they have to have in their pocket? We did this, we passed this test. What is it that you got to have to go spray starting next month as far as the FAA is concerned? So we finished up there, and I did make it out to one hangar, and I got to interview Flynn. These ag airplanes are monsters. Check out this interview with my friend, ag pilot, crop duster guy, Flynn from Nebraska. Well, we just finished up this conference,
Nebraska Aviation Trades Association.
That's it, easy for you to say. Flynn Baker is the guy that invited me out here to do this, and I appreciate it. We had a great time, and good food, good people. Totally enjoyed it. And we're standing here next to this airplane. Now, you actually fly this one, don't you?
Yep.
And what is this thing?
Air Tractor 802.
802. How many horsepower?
1290. I don't know. It's a torque gauge, not a horsepower gauge.
Yeah.
4,000 foot-pounds. A torque is the red line.
Max gross takeoff weight.
16,000 pounds.
16,000 pounds full of stuff going out to fly a low level. My concentration on here was learning a little bit about ag operations, spray operations. Not a crop duster, but I learned a lot and made some friends out here. Totally interesting stuff. And this is where our America's food supply comes from. These guys with the ability to spray, to create the food, to get it to the distribution, it's all based on being able to spray the crops.
Yes.
If we were not able to spray these crops, our food supply in America would shut down.
Wouldn't shut down, but it would be a lot more expensive, a lot less.
Yes.
And not just fuel, but or food, but fuels, fibers. People down south spray cotton.
We
a lot of corn up here is used for. Most of the corn around here is used for feeding cattle and ethanol.
Yeah. So aerial application, it's huge. It's very important. Keeping the aerial applicators alive out there is even more important. We lost 12 in 2023. Lost 12 spray pilots in spray operations. That I think is, I'd like to see that number go down.
Yes.
Everybody
would.
Yeah. So. NATA, and then what's the other organization that's
the national organization that puts on the past presentation and everything is NAAA, National Agricultural Aviation Association.
Yeah, and AAA made a really nice presentation this morning on data, accident data, talking about the categories and things like that. So I sat in on that. Very, very interesting. I learned a lot, and I had a great time. I want to say thanks for inviting me out here. I mean, I don't get invited to high-class operations like this very often.
Enjoyed having you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, those guys have a lot more intelligence than me. I've already said artificial intelligence is coming. I don't really like it. I don't even really know what it is, but I found this quick little video I'm going to show you here. Check this out. This is from my friend Elle. She is very creative. I'm not going to tell you what her real name is, but she's got both a YouTube channel where she plays guitar, and she's got a Facebook following. She makes these very creative videos. Check out this video and watch this very carefully. Go back and look at it again if you missed some of the important nuances in this video. This is Elle's video concerning artificial intelligence.
Humans have come so far, and to think it all started with me. Hang on. Is she serious right now? Just so we're all clear, civilization wouldn't even exist without me. For the last time, Fire, you were harnessed, not invented. You're not even in this club. Mother. Stop fighting, children. Look, we all have our place in human history, from the jaunty little trinkets to the catalyst of the Industrial Revolution who facilitated the global trade of goods. And I'll take the spread of ideas over the spread of goods any day, but you do you. I mean, if we're talking about who's most responsible for the spread of ideas... Hey, just remember, some of yous would have still been science fiction without us material guys, eh? That's a good point. Hello, world. Hi. Can I have a seat at your table? Will you be a net good for humanity? Of course.
So keep in mind, March 6th, we'll be up in Columbus, Ohio, speaking the dinner engagement up there. Here's the graphic for that. You can RSVP. You can contact them if you'd like to go to that. March 16th, we'll be in Crestview. I'll probably have the DC-3 down in Crestview, Florida. This is the DC-3. I'm going to show you a picture of it landing right here. This is the video shot by my friend Brian yesterday out at Atlanta Motor Speedway. This is a student landing, so he got to log 3 off of this one. But the DC-3 is pretty impressive from this camera angle. It's a beautiful airplane. It was a beautiful day. Very windy, very bumpy, very crosswind. But I let the guy have his landing. I let him get all 3 of his bounces in here, and it was totally fine. I'm going to put the February data up on the board here. You know, we've only got 4 of them, and here they are in order. Number 1 was November 887 Charlie Charlie. That's the Sam Ganau, age 65. That's the rebuild rescue airplane that we've already talked about. 6659 Lima. That's the V-35 in Florida. That's the engine problem. Jamin Patel, 54 years old, in Florida, the fatal. And then the 172 that hit the power line. Edward Todd, 67 years old, in Alabama. I'm not really sure why he was down that low over the river, but he definitely hit a power line, DVFR. And then the last one here, this PA-32, this is a Cherokee 6, a fixed-gear airplane up in Ohio. Daniel Baker, 44 years old. From everything I can tell so far, it looks like they took off north in engine failure. This is a loss of thrust on takeoff, a stall spin to the right. The wreckage ended up just a little bit to the right of center line, and it ended up nose down. The authorities there say that he was trying to return to the airport, which always tells me it was just an engine failure. The right wing dropped and it hit vertical. From the untrained observer position, they think that that means that he was trying to make it back to the airport. No, all that happens normally is that the engine fails. They pull up, it stalls, one wing stalls first, and it starts this half-turn spin. Probably wasn't very high. I don't have hardly any information on this crash yet because it just happened yesterday afternoon. Daniel Baker, age 44, had his father and a friend on board the airplane. Our deepest respects and condolences to that entire family. From what I understand, Daniel Baker was a very nice guy, a well-respected pilot, and a local up there. Kept his airplane there, and I'll get more information on that crash for next week. But that's really the only addition since the other 3 in February. So we're actually doing fairly good for the month of February. Not that that crash is good, but we're only at 4 for the month of February. I'm going to play this quick interview with Cole Peterson. This was taken at the NATA convention. He spoke that morning, and then after I spoke for the luncheon, I happened to catch him for just a few minutes to make this quick video. Cole was in an airplane spraying. He pulled up to do his turnaround, had an engine failure in the turnaround. My question was, in primary flight training, they teach you stall recovery to recover with pitch and power. You do an accelerated stall, you can recover by adding power and lowering the nose. In his case, he did an accelerated stall and up and to the left, but he lost his engine in the process. He had never been trained for that. Let's listen to Cole's interview because I specifically asked him about his training for that AQP scenario. That is an AQP scenario in the ag world. Was he ready? You tell me. Listen to Cole. You tell me if you think he was ready. So here's an opportunity to get to talk to somebody that was actually in a loss of control ag accident. Cole Peterson, I appreciate you taking just a moment to speak. I heard him talk this morning and he gave his presentation on this. Talk me through what happened to you. What kind of an airplane and when was this?
It happened in August of 2018. I was flying an Air Tractor 400 and I was flying just outside the city of Grand Forks, North Dakota. And according to a witness report, I was going up into a turn and started descending, and my loss of power had me piling to the ground.
So it's kind of a stall spin. The problem is he hit his head, he's got some memory loss, doesn't really know, but they kind of figured out after the fact. Definitely had something to do with the loss of thrust. What kind of power plant did you have on that airplane?
It was a Pratt & Whitney PT6A-27, so 680 horse turbine engine.
680 horse, big three-blade prop, and you were flying. What was your load at the time? Did you finish spraying, or were you going out to start spraying? Do you remember where you were at as far as load on the airplane?
I don't remember it, but from what they looked at, both on my logs and the plane wreckage, I was at the end of my load, so I would have been very light with very little chemical left to spray.
So very light, but you did a pull-up and you did a turn in conjunction with a loss of thrust. Now, my big question for you, Cole, this is an important one. Where in your training have you ever done a pull-up in a turn in conjunction with a loss of thrust in an ag airplane? When have they ever trained or muscle memoried you on that scenario?
That specifically, I can't recall a time that we ever went over that type of thing, and that seems to be such a far out thing with airplanes that you don't really expect to happen frequently, and so it's not a normal part of the training. We've done plenty of stall training, but it's the standard stalls you have to do for your check rides, so it's very different.
Yeah, standard recovery that you do for your check ride, your stall. What are the two things that you use to recover from a stall traditionally? What are the two aspects?
Power up, wings level.
Pitch and power. You can add power and you can lower the pitch. That's stall recovery, pitch and power. In your case, you're in a turn and you lost thrust. What do you have available to make that wing fly again? You don't have thrust.
If you've got no power, the only way you're going to get your airspeed is to put your nose down.
Right. How much nose down?
I mean, in a situation like mine where I was going up into a turn, you've got quite a ways to pitch your nose over and down to get your airspeed high enough to keep yourself flying and not in a stall.
Right. So the way I take it, and I looked at your accident the day it happened, I saw the pictures, I think probably a couple hours after, I looked at it and I thought, ain't no way, whoever's in that, ain't no way they survived, but you did. You would have had to have specific training on how much nose down to give it, how quickly to unload that wing. You would have had to have it, and it's not your fault. You weren't given the training. Nobody's given that training. We recovered with pitch and power. They gave you the worst case scenario. Your nose was up, you're in the bank, and you lost thrust at the same time. How much nose down? I don't know, but it would have been a lot.
Yeah, that's also one of those situations where we're so close to the ground as spray pilots that it would have been, I'm assuming, very intimidating to try and point your nose at the ground when you're that close already, but pointing your nose at the ground and trying to come in flat with your wheels down would have definitely been better than just keeping in a stall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for speaking, and I hope that maybe somebody else sees this and recognizes the category. This is a scenario. It's not just ag spraying, it's everything else. This is a specific scenario. How to recover from that situation without power. It's huge.
Truth.
It's huge. All right, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Fortunately, Cole survived that, and he will live to spray again. I think this season he's going to go out and get his feet wet. He has not flown since 2018 when that accident happened, but he's going to get back and get after it again. That's it for tonight. I appreciate you all hanging in here with me. I'm not sure how many we ended up in the chat room. If you gave $1 or $2 towards my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel, I sure appreciate that. I'm going to go out and buy a taco if you did, and it's all going to be good. I want you to stay safe out there and pay attention. I'll be back on here again next week. I'm hoping this accident number thing, I hope I have to do more interesting content and less general aviation fails. I could even turn to playing the banjo on Sunday nights if you guys quit crashing your airplanes. There's a lot more fun things that we could do instead of filling up a page with 25 fatals for the month. Let's think of other interesting things that we could do and stay alive out there. I'm going to get out of here and let's get this video up and on the air for my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel. Dan Grider, Public Cause. When have they ever trained or muscle memoried you on that scenario?
That specifically, I can't recall a time.